But the thing with copper is it's almost like a slow-moving train wreck in terms of we can see, and we talk about it a great deal in the news, just how much copper demand is coming.
Today's guest is a supporting sponsor of Liberty in Finance. Welcome back to Liberty in Finance. We're delighted to have this returning guest. Teo Dechev is the president and CEO of Mundoro Capital, and she joins us this Friday, April 5th, 2024. Teo, thank you for coming back on Liberty in Finance.
Thank you for the invitation.
For those of us who have been here over the years, our guests, our viewers will recognize you as someone we met at the Rule Symposium on Natural Resource Investing in Boca Raton, Florida 2 years ago. And we were back there again last year, and looking forward to learning a lot more from this year's conference. When we met you at 2 years ago at the conference, it was at a time when precious metals had been in a kind of a holding pattern. Copper had been performing quite strongly, but there was a lot of concern because of the COVID lockdowns and all that about copper demand going forward. Was it going to be rocketing northward because of the electric economy, or was it going to be in the doldrums because of a recession? And a lot of those concerns have persisted over time, and the part of the result of that has been a long period of, I would call it malaise, in the stocks related to natural resources and metals in particular. And that means the sentiment has been beaten down quite a bit. There's been a lot of discouragement, perhaps even demoralization that's crept into the ranks of those who have been holding and looking for responses to their investments in natural resources. Every month we have Rick Rule back on our channel, and he talks about this is the times that are made where real investors who go in as contrarians and position themselves before the masses recognize the value are those who are rewarded the most handsomely. Can you talk to us, first of all, a little bit about the company itself, about Mundoro Capital, and what it is that you do, and why your model of providing value to your investors may be a little bit different from other companies? And then we'll talk about this environment in which we find ourselves, and why this may be an opportune time for people to take another step in positioning themselves ahead of the masses.
Sure, absolutely. Well, Mundoro, as we've talked about in the past, is a generator. So what we do is we generate opportunities where we believe there is still a significant possibility to discover another copper system, another very important copper system. I think that's, so when you think about an exploration company, and I'm sure most of your viewers are kind of well-versed in the marketplace, but just in terms of a high-level picture, we've got producers, developers, and exploration companies. Exploration companies can really be kind of subcategorized into two categories. The ones that raise their own capital and spend their own capital in order to try and discover a project or a deposit, or they will be purchasing a project in order to basically upgrade the resource, look for a higher grade core, or make the resources bigger. So that's the traditional marketplace. And then there's a small subset of companies that we call the generators. And we're really the ones that actually go out and acquire ground directly from the government. We build the exploration model of what it is that we're looking for, and then we bring in partners to spend the money in order to drill test that particular exploration target. I think that's really significant, and I don't think a lot of people really understand what it means to have, for example, $15 million exploration budget that somebody else pays for. So in 2023, Mundoro had 15 million of exploration budget. That was probably one of the highest numbers of highest exploration budgets we've had in the company for many, many years. And as a result, all of that capital was brought in by a third party. And so we as a company didn't actually have to go out and raise any capital. Our shareholders could then hold on to our equity. And if there's a discovery as a result of those expenditures, that's basically kind of free upside for shareholders. At the same time, by raising or by working with partners that are investing in our projects, we also get paid. So we collect property payments, we collect milestone payments, and then of course the future big prize is the royalty that would get paid upon commercial production. So at the same time of doing exploration and spending not our own treasury, we are also generating free cash flow from basically third parties. And as a result, our treasury went up by 1 million as opposed to down 15 million. So I think, when you look at the exploration landscape, I think investors who are really naturally gravitate to those higher risk stories, this is a really, I think, unique way to invest in exploration without all the downside of basically, drill holes not working out. The company does not need to go out and finance again. There's no dilution in the company, and there's still a budget from partners. And on top of that, the company is generating cash flow. So I think from thinking about Mundoro, you kind of have to think about it as it's almost like an ETF in copper, and it's almost like a little mutual fund of its own in copper, in that it has a series of projects. There's third parties that pay for that. There's no dilution in the company as a result of not having to finance. And there's lots of upside through discovery.
Could you touch on that other point about the environment in which we find ourselves and have been in for a couple of years, where basically a lot of stocks related to companies that are involved in metals, exploration, discovery, development, production, have been not rewarded. They've been punished severely by the market over this period of time. And yet, for the past month or so, gold has been breaking out to all-time new nominal highs against every currency on the globe. And now silver, for the past week and a half, has been starting to take off as well. Does that, in your view, having been involved in this market space for a while, signify any shift in sentiment towards metals, and perhaps including copper? Or do you see copper marching to its own drummer that'll be completely separate in this environment?
Yeah, I think a lot of people confuse market sentiment with equity performance. Market sentiment doesn't always equate to equity performance. So essentially what happens in these cycles is that, yes, commodity prices can go up, and it could be any commodity. It could, for example, right now we're talking about gold. There's a lot of other factors that are causing the gold price to go up. The gold price is not necessarily fundamentally going up because there is going to be a substantial increase in demand. So gold is not, certainly in most circles, I think today, not discussed as a commodity. It's really discussed as a currency. And so, yes, there are broader macro issues that are causing the gold price to come up. So that's happening. And of course, investors have the option to invest in gold directly as a result of that, or through, gold ETFs. In the equity side, you still fundamentally have the same issue. What is the cash of the company? How much money does it need to spend in order to have an opportunity where it can create value? And usually that equates in our business to drilling in order to have a great drill hole to demonstrate that there's a very valuable resource there. If the company currently does not have cash, it still needs to go out and raise money. So by going out and raising money, you are diluting. By diluting, you are essentially, kind of taking a little bit of the wind out of that potential upside. So I think that's why there's still a bit of a disconnect. I think that market sentiment is great for gold. And like we talked about, there's very important macro issues that are driving that. But fundamentally, the equities, I think investors still need to be stock pickers. You still have to pick the right equity that has the right amount of cash, that has the right team and the right asset in order to create success.
Again, back to Rick Rule's mantra for serious investors as contrarians, to position themselves ahead of the masses, to recognize value where it can be found when others aren't recognizing it. He says that's his most exciting, his most exciting moment in life is to realize that he is on to something before others have figured it out, because he knows that he has no competition at that moment and he can position himself. So can you talk to us about what your perception is of the opportunity story and the value story of copper, first of all, and of Mundoro in that context?
Absolutely. So fundamentally, copper is a commodity, and basically goes up or down based on supply and demand. Supply and demand is also affected by what we call kind of broader macro issues. So if an economy is growing, obviously it's going to be spending more on infrastructure, and infrastructure naturally requires a lot of copper. And as a result, you're going to get a huge kind of uptake in demand. Supply is complicated. And I think that's where the real friction and the dynamic comes into play for copper. And I think that's why, and I love Rick's kind of, explanation of look at things when they are cheap, be the first to recognize that, get in, have conviction. And if you are right, you will be able to profit very handsomely. But the thing with copper is it's almost like a slow moving train wreck in terms of we can see, and we talk about it a great deal in the news, just how much copper demand is coming. And even if you look at a conservative curve in terms of what today, like let's just pretend that electrification is not going to end up taking off. We still need, the demand for copper still exceeds the current supply. Then when you layer in, and now we have electrification, now we want to upgrade our grids, now we have lithium batteries and all these other electric vehicle batteries and these electrification stations. And when you start adding in all those layers, you actually need a significant amount of supply. And where supply really falls apart is that we're also living in an age where all the people that are talking about the huge demand for copper are also talking about, but we don't want mining. So you want your electric car, but you don't want the mine. So that's where the friction exists. And I think that's why a lot of governments have now started creating these critical metals strategies, which are very important frameworks, but fundamentally execution, how quickly it can happen, it's not happening fast enough. And so as an industry, and I think this is what's so amazing about the copper market, is that it's undervalued and it will continue to be undervalued for quite some time. So investors are not going to miss out. Get in, position yourself, pick your favorite producer, pick your favorite developer, pick your favorite exploration company. And that's where I think Mundoro really can shine. It can be a very, very attractive exploration story, specifically for the copper space. We're not the type of company that, we look, let's say 2 years out and decide, this is going to be the next hot commodity in the marketplace. Let's switch all of our assets into that kind of a portfolio. We are here for copper. We're here for the long term. Our North Star is definitely this commodity. And essentially what we do is we bring in also very large partners. So today we have BHP and JOGMEC, and actually until the first quarter of this year, also Kinross and Vale. And those type of partners, they have that same very long-term vision. And so not only are we well aligned with them, but our shareholders basically get to really leverage that upside. So you own equity in this tiny junior equity of 16 million market cap, yet that junior company is being funded by a major group. So now you're getting all that additional work done on these programs. And so if there's a success, you'll see it in our share price before you'll ever see it in BHP share price. So it's, I think, a wonderful opportunity for shareholders.
I wanted, before we get off this point, that's very key. Rick, in addition to being someone who's done a lot of diligence in the companies that he invites to the Rural Conference, that's how we met you, has done a lot of the legwork for people, the hard work of trying to find the needle in the haystack of companies like Mundoro Capital that our value plays in his view. But this is a second good point, that these partners, BHP and JOGMEC that you mentioned, are very experienced and large, some of the best run and biggest mining companies in the world. So the fact that they have done their due diligence and selected you as a partner also should be an indicator that people should pay attention to at evaluating the potential risk and value of investing in Mundoro. Do you have any further thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, we get asked a lot, how is it that we can attract the partners that we do? And fundamentally, it's assets. that is what drives any kind of mergers, any kind of acquisitions, any kind of joint ventures in our business. It's the assets. And of course, we have a very good team that focuses on this kind of exploration. So great team, great assets, and that's, and on top of that, a perfectly well-aligned business model. Mundoro does not want to become a miner. We don't want our shareholders to have the risk of development, construction, financing for a future operation that, quite frankly, we're looking for very, very large scale assets. So as soon as there is an exploration resource, these assets get transferred over to our partner, and our partner has very, very deep pockets. And that is, again, it's another layer of risk removed for the shareholder. So there's just so much opportunity within holding a Mundoro shares in order to, if there's a successful resource and a discovery, the leverage is, I think, probably a lot better than a traditional exploration equity.
You mentioned the word lowering risk, and that's something that's been near and dear to the hearts of our audience since we founded it in 2013. Originally, our focus was on preparedness and preparedness for anything, natural disasters, financial upsets, that sort of thing. And we've continued that foundation and layering on ways to optimize your family's positioning to survive and thrive financially going forward. That's how we got into meeting Rick Rule and that sort of thing. So your summary sounds like you're presenting Mundoro as a low-risk way to participate in potential expansion of this imbalance between demand versus supply in the copper marketplace going forward. And then you also mentioned some of your assets. I understand you have projects in Western Tethyan and the Laramide Belt. Hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. And can you talk to us more about the history of those regions, why Mundoro believes that is the interesting place to explore for copper and why you're focusing there?
Yeah, so the Western Tethyan is in Eastern Europe, and that specifically where we are exploring is in Serbia and Bulgaria. And there we have partnerships with BHP and JOGMEC, and until the first quarter of this year with Vale and Kinross as well. The Laramide Belt is in Arizona. It runs through Arizona and New Mexico, but we're really just focused on Arizona. Arizona right now is the third kind of highest production domain on the planet for copper. So if you're going to be in the copper business, you definitely need to be in Arizona. For the Western Tethyan, and specifically Serbia and Bulgaria, it's not as well known, but when you look at the cluster of mines in a very confined area, you can very quickly see that it has the world-class potential of what style of deposits and the type of deposits we see in Arizona. So it has the potential to become a very important copper producing region. And as a result, that's why all the majors are there. And Mundoro established a land position over a very important magmatic complex called Timok. And there we have one of the largest land positions because we got there in 2010. And again, kind of in theme with what Rick identified, get in early before anybody recognizes the value and build a position. And now today we're generating, there's very impressive programs there that have already a number of porphyry discoveries on them and have really the world's largest partners spending money to try and determine if there is another world-class deposit there.
You've mentioned a couple times in passing about the strength of Mundoro's balance sheet and frankly the cash flow model that doesn't get diluted from additional exploration costs, et cetera. Can you tell investors a little bit more about your corporate structure and your market cap and the best way for investors who are interested in exploring becoming shareholders?
So we're a publicly listed company on the Toronto Venture Exchange in Vancouver. We have been public since 2003. We've never done a rollback, and we are currently at approximately 100 million shares outstanding, about 101 million. That's pretty impressive for a company that's been around for 21 years. So we take dilution very, very, very seriously. And I think most of our shareholders really appreciate that. We are over 50% institutionally held. That is very rare for a junior exploration equity. The reason for that is because these type of institutions, first of all, they want exposure to copper. They recognize the value in the model, and they recognize specifically this type of business model where we not only create the opportunities, but we also operate those opportunities for our partners. So we're a little bit of a hybrid in that we generate the projects, we bring in partners, but we still operate in the beginning. And that creates just multiple layers of payments into the company, which allow us to be, as of 2023, and our financials will be out in the end of April, but allowed us to be cash flow positive. And we did provide guidance for that last year. And so we are 1 million cash flow positive. So if you think about our treasury went up by 1 million from 2022 to 2023 year end. And that's pretty amazing in a marketplace where most treasuries got drained out. Companies had to finance and dilute at lower prices, and hence their share caps obviously are struggling. So I think it's really important to understand the investor profile of your audience. And if they're looking for copper exposure, we're a fantastic equity for copper exposure because that is our North Star. That is what we focus on. You're never going to see us divert into another commodity. That's number one. And number two, we don't dilute. Other partners fund all the programs, and we're generating cash from the strategy.
If people want to reach out and find out more directly about your company, Mundoro Capital, where should they go?
They should come to our website. They can reach out to me directly through the website. We have a kind of a contact sheet, or they can send me an email at tdechev@mundoro.com. They can call us. We have a phone, although I think a lot of companies don't have phone numbers anymore in 2024. And we're always also available on social media if anybody wants to reach out on LinkedIn or Twitter, or X, as it's now called.
Well, Teo Dechev, President and CEO of Mundoro Capital, we're just delighted to have you back again here on Liberty and Finance. Folks, if you look in the description of this video, you'll see information about the company, their website, their stock ticker, etc. And just grateful for you being here and keeping us updated on progress. It sounds like it's going to be an exciting time ahead for your company, and that there's already major institutional ownership and major partners that have already led the way. And yet perhaps it's still not too late, as you've described, for people who want to make an entry point and take part in positioning themselves for that value play as contrarian investors at a time when market sentiment has been low now for some time in the natural resource investing stock areas. And that means a natural entry point for people who are willing to find value where it can be found, and following Rick Rules and others' guidance in that. We're grateful for your presence here with our viewers. Any final thoughts before we sign off?
No, I think you provide a wonderful service. For investors, do your due diligence. Feel free to call anytime, especially if you want to know more information about Mundoro. And I think that you will be very pleasantly surprised at what kind of an incredible opportunity it is.
Well, Teo, thank you for joining us again on Liberty and Finance.
Great, thank you.